And welcome back. Now, our next guest grew up in front of the pioneering late businessman Richard Maponya, and he is, of course, no stranger to the African National Congress as well. Businessman and veteran ANC member Tokyo Sexwale joins me now in studio to talk about some of the developments of this week. Thanks so much, and good to see you again in the new year.
Compliments of the season to you and to your viewers and listeners.
And unfortunately, it's not been a great week. Started the week off on a sad note with the passing of business doyen Richard Maponya. And this is someone whom you knew quite well.
Absolutely, as a child. We grew up in front of Dr Maponya in Dubai. My home is only about 30 to 40 meters away from his real Maponya shop. Not Maponya Mall. That's something I saw for the first time when we came out of prison. But before then, we grew up in front of Maponya's shop. It is in Mahalemele Road, in Soweto, the road that goes from Orlando to Deep Soweto, and just next to my home. But even before he could open that shop, Dr. Maponya had started selling ties. He had bought himself into a business with a bicycle, selling ties that he got second-hand from dry cleaners, unclaimed goods, and he gave some to me. He would pay me 5 cents for selling these ties for 35 cents at school when I was doing my Form 1, don't know what we call it today.
Standard 6 or 7?
Something like that. The first one after you left primary.
That would be standard 6.
So I used to sell ties, and he was paying me 5 cents. I guess that was my second business, because the first one was newspapers, working for the Sunday Times and Dakhlik. And then Dr. Maponya, we saw him rising to the challenge of supplying the communities with paraffin. That's where he started. People are talking about the big magnate today, but that's where he started. And people should be encouraged by the fact that being a pioneer of his stature, you start with the mundane, the very basics. So he's selling paraffin with a three-wheeler bicycle, this big one with a carrier in front of it. And then, of course, opened this shop, which is about 30 to 40 meters from my home.
And that's, of course, when everybody started talking about him, because it was this massive supermarket. But your parental home is literally down the road from where that supermarket is.
It was a small supermarket, not the mall, small supermarket. But that was the place where if you are and you want to be in, you hang around at Maponya's. It's a whole center today. Everybody knows it at Maponya's. It was where... it's a point of direction. Where are you going? Such and such. I'm going to Zola, past Maponya's. Orlando, past Maponya's, because it's on the main road that strikes right across from town through Orlando into Deep Soweto. So Maponya was there. We hang out there. That's where you meet the chicks. You see the girls. We hang out there. That's where the guys see one another. We hang out. We are like flowers. That's why we say bloma. We blom there, And then you see the main outies, but then you see Mr. Maponya himself. You see this community leader, more than a business person. Making money is one thing, but he was a philanthropist, philanthropist, and a community leader. No funeral is too far from him of poor people. He'll supply grocery. No family that is struck by poverty is too far from him. He'll supply a coffin. Buses, school fees, primary school fees, high school fees. People would cry to Maponya, selling for credit. That's where Maponya comes from. So the one who today, the first black man who owned BMW, German cars and so on, that's now very high, and people must look up to that. But, for people who are down there today, draw inspiration that pioneering starts with selling second-hand ties and paraffin. And people just hang around. And then, of course, he became this Maponya that we all knew. One who owned horses also, first one, a horse racing person. And I recall when I got to prison, President Mandela, Sisulu, Elias Mutsualedi and Mlangeni from Dube, all were concerned and asking about so many people, Maponya being one of them, because he was a member of the organization.
And then, talking to all the things that he did to support the community, it seems as though that black tax that we talk about,
yes, it is,
was very hard on Mr. Maponya, because he had the whole community depending on him, it would seem.
Hard maybe, but it's something that he was doing with ease, with charm, with sensitivity, loving his people. He lived among them, built his business amongst them, from paraffin. You know, paraffin is kerosene. This is, what you find in square camps, informal settlements today. So it was not coming hard, because he didn't wait for people to come to him. That's why I'm saying no funeral was far. He would make sure, he would ask about the health of people. No woman, an old woman, is too bad and too distant from him to provide his car to take to transport to Baragwanath Hospital. But similarly, we had other people like Mr. Reggie Hlongwane down the road. That one about 10 meters from the house, from my home. So it's Reggie Hlongwane, much younger. We've just buried him the other day, a Muslim. And Reggie and people like Mr. Maponya were not just business people making money, selling sugar, all sorts of things and exploiting people, but they were there to make sure that people are not exploited by high prices, they're not exploited by poverty. They were there to assist. So they were not just our philanthropists, but these are people who cared. And Maponya was one such leader.
And cared about the African National Congress as well.
Absolutely, but at that time, I didn't know. I'm just talking these normal things. But there's a much more serious thing about Mr. Maponya, besides, of course, being a strong community leader. I discovered these things when I got to Robben Island. Now, there's a serious part of Dr. Maponya. When Walter Sisulu said, they're asking about all sorts of people. How's Mr. Maponya? Madu, oh, Maponya. Realizing that I just come from Dube and they knew my home. It wasn't his shop there, those type of things. And then they started telling me about the contribution of Maponya. That Dame Langeni, who's still alive today, was the chairman of the branch of the ANC, this ANC that will be holding its function, 108 years, in a few days' time. That ANC in Dube, led by Mlangeni, Dr. Maponya was a member of. So they told me his participation was. Then I came to understand and decipher the midnight meetings that I used to hold with my father and other people. I used to see them carrying papers. These are papers to me. You are 10 years old, 13. And they're pamphlets of the ANC at the time. So I remember them during the 60s, the turning point towards the armed struggle, 1961. So Dr. Sisulu briefed us, because they were in charge of these things, that this is the role that Maponya was playing. And down the road from Maponya's shop, there's a post office in Dube, where the first casualty of Mkhonto Wesizwe, and Maponya was part of that, the first casualty, his name is Mulefe, the very first person to die in the armed struggle, December 16. He died there. So Maponya, we could hear the explosion from our home with the blast of the Dube post office, and this man who was carrying it, because the first day we were using these things, and he died. And later, when I came out of jail, we were discussing with Mr. Maponya about these things, and he knew Mulefe as well, the man who died at that post office. So it was all around Dube, the Dube which has been named after John Langalebele Dube, the first president of the ANC. We discussed these things, but Maponya was more than that. There were also stories, I can't confirm this, I'm not sure the Communist Party will say that he also was a member of the party during his lifetime. Not sure about that, but definitely member of the ANC. But here's one touch about Maponya. When we were in jail, he owned the first horse owned by a black person to be in the races. He had a racing license. He named this horse Another Color, because all other racers were white. So this one was called Another Color. And lo and behold, he dressed up his jockey and the horse in black, green and gold. That's how Maponya was putting the knife. In black, green and gold. It was a very bold statement. bring up those colors of the ANC as well as the Pan-African Congress, because we share these colors. So Maponya was, putting the knife quietly, doing all sorts of things against apartheid. But his strongest step publicly was when he joined an organization. He was part of an organization called the Urban Bantu Council, UBC. It consisted of, that's when the government was trying to build something like a tricameral, but within the locals. And they had invited quite a number of people, like Tebe Hardy and others, Mushengu, who owns the AO2 Cinema, to join this thing. But the idea was to divert the struggle. And I recall that Maponya saying, that thing, when we went to him as students in the South African student movement, SASM, an offshoot of SASO, and we were calling upon them to leave that body because it was a sellout body, that Maponya left it. And he said the people who remain there, barikisha batho, they sell people. As for the first time I heard him making a political statement. Otherwise, Maponya was underground in the true sense of the word. On the day Nelson Mandela is released, the first car is Maponya. The driver was himself. That is the official car of Madiba. First car that Madiba got, not the one where he was transported from jail, but when he got to reach Johannesburg, Maponya was waiting with all the goodies for Madiba. So he was completely out of underground now. And he drove Madiba for a while because he loved driving for some reason. I always wanted to sit in a car and drive like him. We admired him, even his mannerisms, the way he dresses. He was a real snapper, very good with ladies. Chose a very beautiful wife, Chichi's mother, Marina. Yes, and this is his life. But when matters became serious, Maponya had his own approach towards the struggle. And that's how he survived. He could tell the UBC and government to get off. He could put the colors of the ANC. He helped funerals. He helped students. He hid members of Mkhonto Wesizwe amongst his staff. And finally, he gave Madiba his first driver. And that was his first and his last driver, Peter, who drove Madiba. Madiba was that man before he became president and until his last days. That was Maponya.
And of course...
by the way, without holding a press conference.
And moving straight from that to the African National Congress of today, celebrating their 108th anniversary this week. We're expecting the January 8th statement to be delivered tomorrow. But as tradition goes with the January 8th statement, how's it evolved for the ANC? And does it still inspire and give the sort of hope that it was intended to give when it was first conceptualized?
First, I think let's look at the statement itself. It's a unique statement. That's the only way that I can put it. It's unique. That statement is of the African National Congress leadership, albeit it will be read by the president, but it's a statement of the leadership. It's an assessment, self-assessment, and it was done publicly. But not always publicly. The ANC was an underground organization and so on. But it was done from the 70s, it started being public, so that the ANC could be transparent. Key thing, telling the world about ourselves. It's a statement that covers policies, policy changes, our politics, if we're still on the same strategies, if the tactics have changed. It's a statement that inspires, it's one that motivates. They call it umkombandlela, lesupatsela. It's our compass for the year. We report about our internalities, we report about our problems, our successes, and we challenge members to do certain things. For instance, abroad, Oliver Tambo would call upon people to intensify the international campaign of isolating South Africa. He would call upon the intensification of the armed struggle inside South Africa. Something key will come out of that statement. He would call upon some more sanctions. He would call upon more underground or more MDN, Mass Democratic Movement, organizing. The statement would say something about all sorts of things. The state of the ANC, how we're doing. So that's very unique for the ANC, and it's amongst the few in the world to report its own internalities internationally. It's unique in that sense. I don't know if the statement is still listened to in the manner that it used to be well anticipated in the past. When the president reads it these days, people are walking out of the stadium at that point. They're just talking to one another. And it becomes repetition, these statements. I've got to say, the president is going to read the statement. We're looking forward to what's new. Okay, what's new? That statement is going to capture us, our discipline today. All these crimes at Zondo, they must not come out at Zondo, they must come out of that statement. Our actions, our morality, our ethics, our policies, holding people accountable of the ANC and telling the world about that. It's not a February statement of the president reporting to the nation as president of the country. Housing, education, those type of things. Now you're reporting to the voters and to the world at large. This one you are reporting to the world at large about your preparedness, your commitment to your own policies, your ethics, your morality, your own discipline. What are you doing about this ANC? Is it fit enough to run the statement of February? Okay, so this January. Now that we're in government, is it fit for February? And people will judge us on that.
But we don't seem to be getting that. For all intents and purposes, there seems to be a template where you know exactly the president's going to go from this point to that, to that, to that, to that, and we almost seem to just change the figures, stats, whatever needs to be changed from year to year.
You would not be far-fetched in your view, in that this has become like a road. It's a template. We're patching. I hope this time the president must rise to the challenge of telling us something new. And we know the problems of the ANC. Now to leave the stadium there, and you know the problems, but never had them. You know the problems, but you never had the solutions. And we gloss over issues. Once you do like that, then you go into this area of trust deficit, where people have got no confidence in you. You're losing Johannesburg, you're losing Pretoria, it's a shame for my organization that Johannesburg, I'm a Johannesburger, I'm a Sowetan. It's got more votes. We govern it today by mixing things and finding other parties to help us defeat the EFF and the DA. We should be running roughshod. We should be having the numbers. But people are deserting. And now, because you don't have the numbers, you've got to go and try to pick from other parties to help you with their numbers to govern. That's not how it should be. This statement must address those type of things, the difficulties we're faced with. Now, every member of the ANC, and most of them are, who has been to the Zondo Commission, should have said these things inside the ANC. Zondo should have been, irrelevant. We should have corrected these things inside the ANC. Now, that's where the weakness is today. That's where you have the situation of spoiling this uniqueness of this much anticipated worldwide thing. Everybody, BBC, Sky, they're all waiting for this statement. Today it's like, so I hope this time round the president will rise to the challenge of saying something different. I don't like what I've just heard.
In the news.
Today, Sakina, the deputy president said something yesterday about the president having been deceived and misled about activities regarding the national power producer, which is ESCOM. A spokesperson from the ANC's, from the president's office, not the president, issues a statement against the deputy president. No, the president was not misled. Now you got a chasm. Are these two people talking?
So let me pause you right there. I want to go to the news, read the news, and can we come back and continue on that point?
Please.
It's 8 o'clock. A businessman and veteran ANC member Tokyo Sexwale speaking to me about various developments this week on the South African landscape.